The phone landed on my service cart at 30,000 feet. "Smile," the man in seat 1A murmured. "Walk to the galley, and when it rings, you answer." The cabin lights hummed. The jet cut through turbulence hard enough to rattle glassware. Yet every suited man on board stayed perfectly still, eyes forward, like they'd been trained for chaos. The phone lit up in my palm. Unknown number. I kept my face pleasant, my stride smooth. 8 years of elite private jet service had taught me one unbreakable rule: never react. Not to propositions, not to threats, not to celebrities having breakdowns at 30,000 feet. But my hand shook as I pushed through the galley curtain. I pressed the phone to my ear. Isolde Marin. The voice on the other end was male, clipped, Eastern European. "You have 30 seconds to prove you're not working with the man in seat 6C. My throat closed. "I don't." 6C checked in under the name James Holloway. Manifests show him as a regular client of Alaric Dane's charter network. But the passport he used today was flagged in Prague 2 weeks ago. "You prepared the pre-flight briefing packet. You would have seen the discrepancy." I had. The name had been slightly off, James R. Holloway versus James S. Holloway. I'd flagged it mentally, assumed it was a typo in the system, and moved on because we had 12 VIPs boarding in under an hour, and my manager was already breathing down my neck about turnaround times. "I saw it," I said carefully. "Then you're smarter than you're pretending to be, or you're part of the problem." The line went dead. I stood there, hand clenched around the phone, pulse hammering in my ears. When I turned, the man from 1A was standing in the galley entrance. Up close, he was worse. Not worse like ugly, worse like a blade in a velvet case. Tall, lean, dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved in Milan. His eyes were gray, cold, and scanning me the way a jeweler appraises a stone, calculating worth, searching for flaws. "Isolde," he said, like we were old friends. "I don't know what's happening," I managed. "Yes, you do." He stepped closer. The galley wasn't small, but suddenly it felt like a coffin. "You saw the manifest error. You logged it in your head. You chose not to report it. That makes you either complicit or useful. I'm a flight attendant. You're a detail-oriented woman drowning in debt who can't afford to lose this job." His voice was quiet, factual. "Your father died 18 months ago in what the insurance company called an accident. You've been covering his debts ever since. Your brother needs a specialist in London. Your mother is 3 months from losing her home. And you're here, smiling for billionaires, because Alaric Dane pays better than anyone else in the industry." I slid down my spine. "How do you— I know everything about everyone on this aircraft." He tilted his head slightly. "The man in 6C is not James Holloway. He's using this flight to move something that belongs to me, and you're going to help me prove it." "I'm not helping you do anything." "Yes," he said calmly, "you are." He reached past me, close enough that I could smell cedar and cold air, and pulled a slim tablet from the galley storage cabinet. He tapped the screen twice, then turned it toward me. A photograph filled the display. My brother. Outside his care facility in London. Dated yesterday. My stomach dropped. "I don't hurt children," the man said quietly. "But the people who want what's in 6C's briefcase, they don't share my boundaries." I forced myself to breathe. "What do you want?" "Your eyes, your access, your brain." He set the tablet down. "You're going to walk this cabin like nothing's wrong. You're going to observe 6C, how he moves, who he looks at, when he touches his briefcase. If he makes contact with anyone, you tell me. If he asks for anything unusual, you tell me. And when we land in Milan, you're going to do exactly what I say." "And if I refuse?" His expression didn't change. "Then I let the men in 6C's employment finish the job they started with your family 18 months ago." The words hit like a fist. My father's accident wasn't an accident. He said it so simply, like he was telling me the weather. He discovered a routing discrepancy in Alaric Dane's vendor contracts. He asked the wrong questions. Someone made sure he stopped asking. My hands were shaking now. I pressed them flat against the counter. "Why should I believe you?" "Because you already do." He leaned in, close enough that I could see the faint scar along his jawline. You've spent 18 months wondering why a man who checked every system twice would miss a brake failure. You've spent 18 months paying for debts that appeared out of nowhere. And you've spent 18 months working for the same network that employed him, wondering if you're next. I hated that he was right. I hated that I'd thought all of this, late at night, staring at bills I couldn't pay. Who are you? Leander Sorelli, he straightened. And you now work for me. I work for Alaric Dane. Alaric Dane, Leander said softly, works for the highest bidder. Right now, that's not me. Which is why you're going to help me prove who it is. The jet shuddered. More turbulence. A call button chimed from the main cabin. Leander's gaze didn't leave mine. Go do your job, Isolde. Smile, serve, observe. When we land, you'll come with me. If you run, your brother loses his care and your mother loses her home by the end of the week. If you cooperate, I'll clear every debt your father left behind, and I'll make sure no one ever threatens your family again. That's not a choice. No, he agreed. It's not. He stepped aside. I walked past him on legs that felt like water, back into the cabin where 12 men sat in perfect silence, and the man in 6C smiled at me like we were friends. I made it through the next 2 hours on autopilot, refilled drinks, adjusted cabin temperature, delivered meals with a smile that felt like it was painted on. And I watched. 6C, whoever he really was, didn't move like the other passengers. He sat too still. His eyes tracked the galley curtain every time it moved. When I brought him sparkling water, he touched the briefcase beside him reflexively, like checking a pulse. He was afraid. That scared me more than anything Leander had said. When the captain announced our descent into Milan, Leander caught my eye from across the cabin. One slight nod. I didn't nod back. The landing was smooth. The jet taxied toward a private hangar instead of the main terminal, standard for Dane's VIP clients. As passengers gathered their things, Leander stood, buttoned his jacket, and moved toward the exit like a man who owned the ground we were about to touch. 6C left his briefcase. Just for a moment, he stepped into the lavatory, and the briefcase stayed in his seat. I looked at Leander. He was already looking at me. His expression was clear. Do nothing. Dane's jets had discreet cabin cameras. For insurance, they told us during training, but everyone knew they were really for leverage. The camera above 6C's row was angled toward the aisle, not the seat. And the galley curtain created a blind sliver if you timed it right, something every crew member learned in week 1. But my feet moved anyway. I walked past 6C's row, bumped the seat in front of him with my hip. An accident, a stumble, and the briefcase tipped sideways. The latch popped. Inside, a single USB drive, taped to the interior lining. I righted the briefcase in less than 3 seconds, latched it, and kept walking. When 6C emerged from the lavatory, I was in the galley, hands steady, face blank. Leander was gone. The passengers disembarked. I went through my post-flight checklist by rote, secured cabin, logged inventory, filed my report with the operations team via tablet. Alawan, my fellow attendant and the only person on this crew I halfway trusted, leaned against the galley counter as I worked. You okay? She asked. Fine. You look like you've seen a ghost. I forced a smile. Long flight. She studied me for a moment, then shrugged. Alaric wants us in the hangar office before we leave. Something about updated security protocols. Of course he did. I followed her down the jet stairs, across the tarmac, and into the climate-controlled quiet of the hangar operations wing. Alaric Dane's office was glass and steel, overlooking the hangar floor. He stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking every inch the billionaire philanthropist the media loved. Leander sat in the chair across from Alaric's desk. Elowen stopped short. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize. Stay, Alaric said smoothly. This concerns both of you. Leander's gaze slid to me. I felt it like a hand at my throat. Alaric smiled. We've had a security concern flagged on today's flight. Nothing serious, but I want to review protocols with my crew. He gestured to the chairs. Please, sit. Elowen sat. I stayed standing. Isolde, Alaric said gently, sit. Leander's expression didn't change, but I saw the faint tension in his jaw. I sat. Alaric leaned against his desk. The passenger in 6C, James Holloway, has been flagged by one of our security consultants as a potential risk. Nothing concrete, but enough to warrant a review. I need to know, did either of you notice anything unusual during the flight? Elowen shook her head immediately. He was quiet, polite, no issues. Alaric looked at me. Same, I said. Leander's fingers tapped once against the armrest. Alaric's smile widened. Good. I'm glad to hear it. He straightened. That said, I'm implementing a new protocol. For the next 2 weeks, all crew on VIP charters will be accompanied by a security liaison during ground operations. Just a precaution. A liaison? Elowen frowned. Mr. Sorelli has agreed to consult, Alaric said smoothly. My stomach dropped. Leander stood. I'll be reviewing flight logs, passenger manifests, and staffing rosters for discrepancies. Starting tonight. He looked directly at me. Isolde, you'll assist me. You prepared today's briefing packet. I'll need you to walk me through the documentation process. It wasn't a request. Alaric nodded. Excellent. Elowen, you're free to go. Isolde, stay with Mr. Sorelli. I'll have your updated contract sent over by morning. Elowen shot me a sympathetic look and left. The door clicked shut. Alaric's smile vanished. You saw the briefcase. I didn't answer. She saw it, Leander said calmly. And she didn't touch it, which means she's exactly as smart as I thought. Alaric's gaze moved between us. This stays quiet, Leander. If word gets out that my operation has leaks, then fix your operation. Leander's voice was blade sharp. Because the leak isn't in your crew, it's in your security infrastructure. Someone with access to manifests, clearances, and routing is feeding information to people who want me dead. And I'm going to find out who. He turned to me. Let's go. I stood on shaking legs. Alaric didn't stop us. Leander's car was black, sleek, and waiting just outside the hangar. A driver stood by the rear door, silent, professional, eyes that tracked movement like a predator. Get in, Leander said. I didn't move. Where are we going? Somewhere we can talk without Alaric Dane's cameras recording every word. I didn't agree to this. You agreed the moment you opened that briefcase. He stepped closer, not threatening, just inevitable. You made a choice, Isolde. You didn't walk away. You didn't alert 6C. You checked the contents and you gave me information without saying a word. That makes you valuable, and mine. I'm not anyone's. His mouth curved, not quite a smile. Then prove it. Walk away. Go back to your apartment, your debts, your brother's deteriorating care plan. See how long it takes for the people who killed your father to decide you're a loose end. I hated him. I hated that he was right. But I didn't move toward the car. If I do this, I said, and my voice didn't shake, I want guarantees. His eyes narrowed slightly. You're not in a position to negotiate. Then you don't need me as badly as you're pretending. I crossed my arms. You have people, money, resources. But you came to me. That means I have something you can't get anywhere else. Silence. He studied me the way he'd studied me in the galley, like I was a lock he was learning to pick. What do you want? My brother's care, I said. Paid in full, not month to month. A 2-year contract with his specialist in London, non-refundable. Done. My mother's house. The deed transferred to her name, the mortgage cleared, no strings. Done. And legal protection. If this goes sideways, I don't end up in a cell or a ditch. You cover my exposure. His mouth curved, not quite a smile, but close. Anything else? Yes. I met his gaze and held it. I won't hurt anyone who doesn't deserve it. If you ask me to do something that crosses that line, I walk. Consequences or not. The curve vanished. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, agreed. You'll have confirmation soon. He opened the car door himself. I got in. The car slid through Milan like a knife through silk. I sat with my hands folded in my lap, watching the city blur past tinted windows. Leander hadn't spoken since we'd left the hangar. His driver, silent, efficient, navigated side streets and narrow alleys I didn't recognize. We weren't going to a hotel. Where are we going? I asked. Somewhere you can work without interruption. Leander didn't look at me. He was reading something on his phone, thumb scrolling with the kind of focus that suggested he'd already forgotten I was there. I hated that it bothered me. Work on what? Finding the leak? He glanced up. You negotiated terms, Isolde. Now you earn them. The car stopped in front of a building that looked like every other expensive apartment block in the financial district. Glass, steel, security cameras angled to cover every approach. Leander got out. I followed. The elevator required a keycard. We rode to the top floor in silence. When the doors opened, I stepped into a space that didn't feel like a home. It felt like a command center. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The furniture was minimal, dark leather, clean lines, nothing personal. But the desk against the far wall was covered in monitors, tablets, and stacks of files that looked like they'd been pulled from a corporate archive. This is your operations hub, I said. One of them. Leander shrugged off his jacket and draped it over a chair. He rolled up his sleeves, efficient, methodical, and I caught a glimpse of ink along his forearm. Not a full sleeve, just a single line of text in a language I didn't recognize. He caught me looking. Latin, he said, means trust is earned, not given. I didn't ask what had taught him that. He gestured to the desk. Sit. I sat. He pulled up a second chair, close enough that I could feel the heat of him, and opened a laptop. The screen filled with spreadsheets, flight logs, passenger manifests, crew schedules. This, he said, tapping the screen, is 6 months of data from Alaric Dane's charter network. Every flight, every passenger, every crew member. I need you to find the pattern. I stared at the rows of data. That's thousands of entries. Yes. And you think I can just spot something your people missed? My people, Leander said quietly, don't know what you know. They don't understand how the system works from the inside. They can't tell the difference between a clerical error and a deliberate exploit. He leaned closer. But you can. I pulled the laptop toward me. What am I looking for? Anomalies. Flights that reroute without explanation. Passengers who board under one name and disembark under another. Crew schedules that don't match standard rotation patterns. Catering vendors who appear once and vanish. Anything that shouldn't be there. I scrolled through the first month of logs. This is going to take hours. Then we'd better start. I pulled the laptop toward me and started stripping the noise away. Flag credentials first, then reroutes, then vendor anomalies. It took 3 hours to find the first thread. A catering vendor, Lazaro & Sons, had supplied 4 flights over a 3-month period. All 4 flights had been VIP charters. All 4 had passengers who checked in under flag credentials. Here, I said, turning the screen toward Leander. He leaned in, eyes scanning the data. Lazaro & Sons. They're not on Alaric's approved vendor list. They shouldn't have access to the aircraft at all. But they did. Leander pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. Which means someone with clearance authorized them. Who handles vendor approvals? Security operations. His jaw tightened. Gideon Wraith. The name landed like a stone in still water. Who is he? A consultant Alaric hired 6 months ago. Former military, impeccable credentials, supposed to be auditing vulnerabilities. Leander's voice went cold. I've been trying to prove he's the leak for 2 months. You just gave me the first solid thread. I looked back at the screen. If he's authorizing fake vendors, he's not just stealing information. He's creating access points. Exactly. Leander stood, pacing to the window. He's not working alone. He can't be. This kind of operation requires coordination. People on the ground, people in the air, people who can move assets without triggering alarms. Like 6C. Like 6C. He turned back to me. The USB drive you saw in his briefcase. It's a ledger. Names, accounts, routes. Everything Gideon's been building for the past 6 months. If I can get my hands on it, I can dismantle his entire network. And if you can't, his expression didn't change. Then he disappears with enough leverage to cripple half the operations in this city, including mine. I closed the laptop slowly. So what's the plan? We set a trap. Leander crossed back to the desk, pulled up a new file. There's another flight tomorrow, Milan to Zurich. High-value passenger, sensitive cargo. If Gideon's pattern holds, he'll try to exploit it. And you want me on that flight? I want you where you can see everything he does. Leander's gaze locked on mine. You're going to work the flight like normal, but this time, you're going to give me a real-time feed of every move he makes. My stomach dropped. He'll know, if I'm watching him. He won't. Leander pulled a small device from his pocket. Sleek, black, no bigger than a USB drive. Encrypted comms, audio only. You wear it, I hear everything. If he approaches you, if he asks questions, if he so much as looks at you wrong, I'll know. I stared at the device. This feels like a terrible idea. It's the only idea. He set it on the desk between us. Gideon doesn't know you're working with me. As far as he's concerned, you're just another flight attendant. That gives us an advantage. Until he figures it out. Then we'd better make sure he doesn't. I picked up the device. It was warm from his pocket. What happens if this goes wrong? It won't. That's not an answer. Leander leaned forward, hands flat on the desk. If it goes wrong, you follow protocol. You stay calm. You don't run. And you trust that I will get you out. Why should I trust you? Because, he said quietly, I keep my promises. And I promised you that no one would hurt your family. That includes you. The words settled between us like a contract signed in blood. I slipped the device into my pocket. The rest of the night blurred. Leander walked me through the Milan-Zurich flight details. Passenger list, cargo manifest, crew assignments. Aloan would be on the flight with me, useful but not fully briefed. I'd have to work around her. She's loyal to Alaric, Leander said. Don't assume she's on your side. She's my friend. Friends lie when the price is right. He handed me a printed manifest. Memorize this. If anything changes, passenger swaps, route adjustments, last-minute additions, you tell me immediately. I scanned the list. 12 passengers. All names I didn't recognize except one. Alaric's on this flight? He's escorting the cargo personally. Leander's mouth thinned. Which means it's either incredibly valuable or incredibly dangerous. Or both. Or both. He walked me to the door just past midnight. The driver was waiting downstairs. Get some sleep, Leander said. You'll need it. I hesitated. When do I see proof? Proof of what? My brother's care, my mother's house. You said you'd handle it. His expression softened. Barely, just a fraction. Check your email when you get home. I did. 2 messages were waiting. The first was from a law firm I'd never heard of. Property transfer, 14 Ashford Lane, my mother's address. The attached document showed the mortgage paid in full, with deed transfer proceedings initiated. Completion expected within 72 hours. The second was from a medical coordinator in London. Treatment agreement, Samuel Marin, my brother's name. A 2-year contract with his specialist. Fully paid, non-refundable. I sat on my bed in my tiny apartment, staring at the screen until my eyes burned. He'd done it. In less than 6 hours, Leander Sorelli had erased 18 months of debt, desperation, and sleepless nights. And all it cost me was my freedom. I closed the laptop and leaned back against the headboard, exhaustion pulling at me. That's when I heard the knock. 3 sharp raps, deliberate. I froze. It was past 1 in the morning. No one knocked on my door at 1 in the morning. I moved to the peephole, pulse hammering. A man stood in the hallway, 30s, clean cut, wearing a jacket that didn't quite hide the bulk of a shoulder holster. He wasn't looking at the door. He was looking at his phone, casual, like he had all the time in the world. Isolde Marin. His voice carried through the door, American accent, flat and professional. I need 60 seconds of your time. I don't know you. No, but I know you. He glanced up at the peephole. I know your brother Samuel needs his medication delivered every Thursday at 9 a.m. I know your mother checks her mailbox at 7:30 every morning. And I know you just made a very poor choice of employer. My blood went cold. What do you want? To deliver a message. He slipped his phone into his pocket. The people you owe, they're not going away just because some gangster paid off a few accounts. You think Leander Sorelli can protect you? He can't even protect his own people. I don't owe anyone anything. Your father did. And debt doesn't die, sweetheart. It transfers. He smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't reach anywhere near his eyes. Stay out of Gideon Wraith's business. Stop asking questions. Stop playing detective for Sorelli. Or your family learns what happens when debts come due. He turned and walked away, footsteps echoing down the hall. I stood there, hand pressed against the door, shaking so hard I thought my legs would give out. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Isolde, Leander's voice, sharp, controlled. Lock your door, don't open it for anyone. I'm 10 minutes away. How did you? I've had someone watching your building since you left my car. His tone shifted, something cold sliding underneath. He just reported a visitor. Tell me what happened. I told him, every word. My voice didn't shake as much as I thought it would. When I finished, the line went silent for 3 long seconds. Then, pack a bag. Essentials only. You're not staying there tonight. Leander. The man who just threatened you is named Paul Verne. He works for a debt collection operation that Gideon's been using to pressure crew members into cooperation. By tomorrow morning, Verne will be sitting in a Milan police station answering questions about extortion, illegal surveillance, and trafficking in stolen financial data. His employer's accounts will be frozen, his business licenses revoked, and every contract he holds will be under audit. I sank onto the edge of my bed. You can do that? I already did. I made the calls while you were talking. His voice softened, just slightly. But that doesn't mean you're safe in that apartment. Pack. Now. Where am I going? Somewhere he can't reach you. Leander's car pulled up 8 minutes later. I was waiting in the lobby, bag slung over my shoulder, heart still trying to crawl out of my chest. The driver opened the door without a word. Leander was in the back seat, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. He ended the call as I slid in beside him. You okay? He asked. No. Good. That means you're paying attention. He glanced at the driver. Via Monte Napoleone. The car moved. I stared out the window, watching Milan slide past in streaks of light and shadow. You said you had someone watching my building. I have someone watching everywhere you go. That's necessary. He turned toward me, and in the dim interior light, his face was all sharp lines and cold focus. Gideon knows you're valuable to me now. That makes you a target. If I don't protect you, he'll use you to get to me. And I don't lose assets. I'm not an asset. His mouth curved, barely. Then what are you? I didn't have an answer. The car stopped in front of a building I didn't recognize. Older than the operations hub. Quieter. Residential, but with the kind of security that didn't advertise itself. Leander got out and gestured for me to follow. We took an elevator to the 4th floor. He unlocked a door at the end of the hall and stepped aside. This is a safe house. No one knows about it except me and 2 people I trust with my life. You'll stay here tonight. The apartment was small, clean, impersonal. A couch, a bed in the next room, blackout curtains, a kitchen that looked like it had never been used. I set my bag down. You're leaving. I have calls to make. People to remind that touching you is a bad idea. He pulled out his phone, then paused. There's food in the fridge. Doors lock from the inside. Don't open them for anyone. Not even you? I'll call first. He moved toward the door, then stopped, turned back. Isolde. What? What Verna said about your father's debt. It's not true. Your father didn't owe anyone anything. The debt was manufactured. Gideon's people built it to control you, the same way they've controlled half of Alaric's crew. My throat tightened. How do you know? Because I pulled the financial records. Your father was clean. The accident that killed him? It wasn't about money. It was about him seeing something he shouldn't have. Routing logs, vendor, schedules, the same anomalies you found tonight. Leander's voice went quiet. He was good at his job, just like you, and that made him dangerous. I sat down on the couch before my legs gave out. They killed him because he noticed a pattern. Yes. And now I'm doing the same thing. Yes. Leander crossed back toward me, stopped a few feet away. Which is why you're not going back to that apartment. Why you're not taking any shifts I don't clear. And why you're going to let me do what I'm good at. Which is? Making sure the people who hurt you regret it. I looked up at him. You're talking about Gideon. I'm talking about everyone in his network. Every person who threatened you, who touched your family, who put your father in the ground. His eyes were gray ice. By the time I'm done, they won't have the money or the access to come near you again. You said you don't kill. I don't? He crouched down, eye level with me now, close enough that I could see the faint scar along his jaw. But there are worse things than dying, Isolde. I can take everything someone has and leave them breathing. That's the art. I should have been afraid. I wasn't. Why are you doing this? The question hung in the air between us. Leander studied me for a long moment, something shifting behind his expression, something that looked almost like surprise. Because I don't leave assets unprotected, he said finally. I'm not an asset. No. His voice dropped. You're not. He stood before I could ask what that meant. Get some sleep. I'll be back in a few hours. You're not staying? Someone has to make sure Verna's arrest goes exactly the way I want it to. He moved toward the door, then paused. Isolde. What? Thank you, I blinked. For what? For not running, for getting in the car, for trusting me when you had every reason not to. He looked back at me, and for the first time, I saw something in his face that wasn't control or calculation. It was exhaustion. I know what it costs, he said quietly. To put your life in someone else's hands, I don't take that lightly. The door closed behind him before I could respond. I sat there in the silence, pulse still racing, and realized three things. 1. Leander Sorelli had just told me my father was murdered for being good at his job. 2. He'd dismantled a debt collection operation in under 10 minutes because someone had threatened me. 3. I'd just asked him why he was protecting me, and he hadn't given me an answer. Or maybe he had. I pulled out my phone and stared at the emails, the house, the medical contract, the 72-hour deed transfer. All of it, done in less than 6 hours. I thought about the way he'd crouched down to meet my eyes, the way he'd called me by my name, not the flight attendant or my asset, the way he'd paused at the door and said thank you. I curled up on the couch and closed my eyes. When I woke up, pale morning light was filtering through the blackout curtains, and Leander was sitting in the chair across from me, laptop open, coffee in hand. You stayed, I said. He glanced up. I said I'd be back in a few hours. You said you had calls to make. I made them. He nodded toward the kitchen. There's coffee, and we need to leave in 40 minutes for the terminal. I sat up slowly, disoriented. What time is it? 7:30. He closed the laptop. Vern's in custody. His employer's assets are frozen. 3 other members of Gideon's network have been flagged for audit. And Alaric Dane received a very pointed reminder that his crew is off limits. Did he listen? He will. Leander stood, rolling his shoulders. Get ready. Today's going to be a long day. I moved toward the kitchen, then stopped. Leander. What? Last night, what you said about my father. About him noticing patterns. I turned to face him. I found him, in the garage. After the brakes failed. I was the one who called the ambulance. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. I know. You read the report. I read everything. He picked up his jacket. I'm sorry you had to see that. I spent 18 months thinking he'd made a mistake, that he'd been careless. He wasn't. No, I swallowed hard. He was just good at his job. Leander crossed the room, stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his gaze. So are you, he said quietly. And I'm not going to let what happened to him happen to you. You can't promise that. Watch me. The flight to Zurich began at the same private terminal where yesterday's nightmare had started. I arrived with Leander's driver, went through security with his encrypted device already tucked into my pocket, and met Elowen in the crew lounge. She took one look at me and frowned. You look like you didn't sleep. Long night. Alaric's new security guy? I forced a smile. Something like that. She studied me for a moment, then shrugged. Well, buckle up. Today's gonna be weird. Why? Alaric's on the passenger list. He never flies his own charters. She lowered her voice. And the cargo we're carrying? It's flagged as high-security diplomatic transport, which means we're not supposed to ask questions. My pulse kicked up. What kind of cargo? No idea. But there's a locked container in the hold, and we've got 3 additional security personnel listed as passengers. She glanced around, then leaned closer. One of them is Gideon Wraith. My blood went cold. The consultant? Yeah. Apparently he's overseeing transport security for this run. Elowen rolled her eyes, because nothing says smooth flight like having a guy with a gun sitting in first class. I kept my face neutral. Should be interesting. Interesting is one word for it. Boarding started at 9. The passengers trickled in. Businessmen, a diplomat, 2 women who looked like lawyers. Alaric boarded last, tailored and composed, looking every inch the benevolent billionaire, and, behind him, Gideon Wraith. He was younger than I expected. Mid-30s, maybe. Blonde hair, sharp jaw. The kind of face that belonged in a corporate boardroom or a cologne ad. He moved like someone who'd spent time in the military, controlled, aware, always scanning. When his eyes landed on me, I felt it like a hand at my throat. "Coffee, sir?" I asked, smile in place. "Black." His voice was smooth, American accent, no warmth. "And I'll need access to the crew manifest." He tapped the badge clipped to his belt, security liaison, like it was a master key. I blinked. "I'm sorry." "Crew manifest. I'm conducting a routine security review." He pulled out a tablet. Standard protocol for high-value transports. Elowen appeared at my elbow. "I can get that for you, Mr. Wraith." "Appreciate it." He smiled. Charming, easy. It didn't reach his eyes. I busied myself with pre-flight service, but my hands were shaking. The device in my pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I ducked into the galley, pulled it out, pressed the activation button Leander had shown me. A tiny green light blinked once. "I'm here," Leander's voice came through, barely a whisper in my ear. "Talk to me." I kept my voice low. "Gideon's on the flight. He just asked for the crew manifest." Silence. Then, "He's looking for anomalies. Stay calm. Do your job. If he asks you questions, answer them honestly. You haven't done anything wrong. Yet. Yet." I could hear the faint smile in his voice. "You're doing fine, Isolde. Just keep your eyes open." The flight took off 20 minutes later. For the first hour, everything was normal. I served drinks, managed meal service, kept my smile steady even though my heart was trying to climb out of my chest. Gideon sat in 2A, 1 row behind Alaric, and spent most of the flight on his tablet, occasionally glancing toward the cockpit. At the 90-minute mark, he got up and walked toward the galley. I was alone. "Isolde, right?" He leaned against the counter, all easy charm. "Yes, sir." "You've been with Dane's network for a while." It wasn't a question. 8 years. Impressive. Most attendants don't last that long in VIP service. He tilted his head. "You must be very good at your job." "I try." "I'm sure you do." He smiled. "I'm reviewing security protocols across all of Alaric's operations. Part of that involves understanding crew dynamics. Would you mind answering a few questions?" Every instinct I had screamed no, but Leander's voice was steady in my ear. "Answer him. Give him nothing he can use." "Of course," I said. "Have you noticed anything unusual on recent flights? Passenger behavior, routing changes, anything that felt off?" I kept my expression pleasant. "Not that I can think of." "No manifest discrepancies, no last-minute passenger swaps." My throat tightened. He was fishing. "Nothing unusual," I said. "Our operations team is very thorough." "I'm sure they are." Gideon's smile widened. "And yesterday's flight? Monaco to Milan. Any issues there?" "No, sir. Smooth flight." "Glad to hear it." He straightened. "Thanks for your time, Isolde. You've been very helpful." He walked back to his seat. I gripped the counter until my knuckles went white. "He knows," I whispered. "He suspects," Leander corrected. "There's a difference. Keep moving. Don't give him a reason to focus on you." 2 hours into the flight, Alaric summoned me to his seat. "Isolde." He gestured to the empty seat across from him. "Sit." I sat. "How are you finding Mr. Sorelli's consultation?" I kept my face blank. "It's fine, sir." "Good." Alaric folded his hands. "I want to be clear about something. Leander is a valuable associate, but he's also a man with significant enemies. If you're working with him, you need to understand that you're stepping into a very dangerous world. I understand, sir. Do you? His gaze sharpened. Because the people Leander is hunting, they don't stop at business. They target families, homes, everything you care about. My pulse hammered. Are you warning me, sir, or threatening me? Alaric's expression didn't change. I'm reminding you that loyalty is currency, and right now you're spending it in two directions. He dismissed me with a nod. I returned to the galley, legs weak. What did he say? Leander's voice was tight. He knows I'm working with you. He's trying to scare me. Did it work? I thought of my mother's house, my brother's care contract, the 18 months I'd spent drowning. I thought of Leander sitting in that chair all night, making calls, dismantling threats. No. Good girl. The plane began its descent into Zurich 30 minutes later. We landed just after 3 in the afternoon, local time. The passengers disembarked. The cargo, whatever it was, stayed locked in the hold. Gideon and 2 other security personnel remained on board, overseeing the transfer. Elowen and I went through our post-flight checklist. You okay? She asked. You've been jumpy all day. I'm fine. Isolde. She grabbed my arm. If something's wrong, it's not. I pulled away gently. I'm just tired. She didn't look convinced, but she let it go. I finished my checklist, grabbed my things, and headed for the exit. Gideon was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. Isolde. His smile was gone. We need to talk. My stomach dropped. About what? About the man you're working for. He stepped closer. And the mistake you're about to make. I didn't move. Gideon stood at the bottom of the aircraft stairs, hands in his pockets, looking every inch the professional security consultant. Behind him, the Zurich tarmac stretched toward a line of private hangars, afternoon sun glinting off metal and glass. I'm not sure what there is to talk about, I said. Then let me clarify. He glanced past me toward the aircraft, where the cargo transfer was still in progress. Leander Sorelli is a dangerous man, but you already know that. What you don't know is that he's using you. Using me for what? To get to me. Gideon's expression remained pleasant, controlled. You're smart, Isolde. You found the Lazaro and Sons discrepancy. You've been feeding him information, and now you're standing here, wearing an encrypted comms device that's probably still transmitting everything we say. My pulse spiked. He knew. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you do. He stepped closer, voice dropping. Leander needs evidence. He needs a way to prove I'm the leak he's been hunting for months. And you, competent, observant, desperate to protect your family, you're the perfect tool. In my ear, Leander's voice came through, sharp and cold. Stay calm. Keep him talking. I forced myself to breathe. If you know I'm working with him, why are you telling me this? Because I'm giving you a choice. Gideon's smile returned. Leander can't protect you. Not from me. Not from the people I work with. But I can offer you something better than empty promises and manufactured debt relief. Like what? Real safety. For you and your family. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen twice, then turned it toward me. A photograph filled the display. My mother, outside her house, this morning. My blood turned to ice. The deed transfer Leander initiated. Gideon's voice was almost gentle. It won't go through. Legal complications, bureaucratic delays, these things happen. But I can make sure it does go through. I can make sure your brother's care continues without interruption. All you have to do is stop helping Leander and start helping me. What do you want? Access. He pocketed his phone. You're positioned inside Alaric's operation in ways I can't replicate. You see crew schedules, passenger manifests, flight logs. You can move through terminals and aircraft without raising suspicion. I need that access. To do what? To finish what I started. His expression hardened slightly. Leander thinks he's hunting me, but I've been 3 steps ahead this entire time. The USB drive from yesterday's flight, it's already in transit. The cargo on today's flight, it's leverage I've spent 6 months building. By the time Leander figures out what I've taken, I'll be untouchable. Leander's voice in my ear. He's overconfident. Let him keep talking. I kept my face blank. And if I say no, then your family suffers the consequences of your poor judgment. Gideon glanced at his watch. You have until we reach the hangar to decide. After that, the offer expires. He walked away, boots clicking against the tarmac. I stood there, hands shaking, trying to remember how to breathe. Isolde, Leander's voice was steady, controlled. Get to the hangar, stay visible. Don't go anywhere alone. I'm 5 minutes out. He knows about the device. I heard. A pause. He's bluffing about your mother's house. The transfer is ironclad. But he's right about one thing. He's been ahead of us this entire time. What do we do? You do exactly what you've been doing. You stay smart, you stay calm, and you trust me to handle Gideon. The line went quiet. I walked toward the hangar on legs that felt like water. Inside, the hangar operations office was controlled chaos. Alaric stood by the windows, speaking rapid French into his phone. The cargo container from the aircraft sat on a pallet near the loading bay, surrounded by security personnel. Elowen was at the crew desk, filing post-flight reports. She looked up when I entered. You okay? You look pale. Fine, just tired. Gideon gave you trouble? I forced a smile. Nothing I couldn't handle. She didn't look convinced, but Alaric ended his call and gestured for both of us to approach. Good flight, he said. Clean transfer. You're both free to go. Elowen gathered her things. I moved toward the door, but Alaric's voice stopped me. Isolde, a moment. Elowen glanced at me, then left. Alaric waited until the door closed. Gideon spoke to you. It wasn't a question. Yes. What did he offer you? I met his gaze. Safety. For my family. And what did he ask for in return? Access. Information. The same thing Leander's asking for. Alaric studied me for a long moment. You're in an impossible position. I recognize that. But you need to understand something. Gideon and Leander are both playing a game that will destroy anyone caught in the middle. If you're smart, you'll walk away from both of them. I can't. Why not? Because my family's already in the middle. Because my father died for noticing the same patterns I'm seeing now. Because walking away doesn't make me safe. It just makes me a loose end. Alaric's expression softened slightly. Your father was a good man. He didn't deserve what happened to him. Did you know? The question came out sharper than I intended. Did you know Gideon killed him? I suspected. Alaric's voice dropped. But suspicion isn't proof. And in this world, proof is the only currency that matters. Then help me get proof. He shook his head. I can't take sides, Isolde. My operation depends on neutrality. If I move against Gideon, I lose half my clients. If I move against Leander, I lose the other half. So you do nothing. I protect my business. He moved toward the door, paused with his hand on the handle. But I'll tell you this, if you're going to survive this, you need to stop being a pawn and start being a player. Figure out what you want, then take it. He left. I stood there alone, pulse hammering. The door opened again. Leander. He crossed the space in 3 strides, eyes scanning me like he was checking for injuries. You're okay. I'm fine. You're not. He touched my arm, brief, steadying. Gideon threatened your mother. Alaric just told you to pick a side. You're about as far from fine as it gets. I pulled away. What's in the cargo container? Financial records, account ledgers, proof of who's been funding Gideon's operation. Leander's jaw tightened. If I can access it, I can trace the money back to his backers and cut off his support. Without funding, his entire network collapses. So take it. I can't. It's flagged as diplomatic cargo. If I move on it without authorization, I trigger an international incident. Alaric knows that. Gideon knows that. That's why they're using Alaric's network. It's untouchable. Then what's the plan? We wait. The cargo gets transferred to a secure facility tomorrow morning. During the transfer, there's a 3-minute window when it passes through a corridor with limited camera coverage. That's when we move. We? You and me. He pulled out a tablet, brought up a schematic. This is the facility. High security, but not impenetrable. You're going to walk in as crew support, scheduled inspection, routine protocol. I'll be your escort, posing as facility security. We access the container, photograph the contents, and walk out before anyone notices. I stared at the schematic. That's insane. It's the only option. What if Gideon's there? He will be. That's why we need to be faster. Leander's gaze locked on mine. I know I'm asking a lot. I know you're terrified. But you're the only person who can do this. You have the access, the training, the composure under pressure. Without you, I can't stop him. And if something goes wrong, then I get you out, no matter what it costs. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that 18 months of drowning hadn't just traded one cage for another. But I thought about my father, about the patterns he'd noticed, about the garage and the failed brakes, and the 18 months of wondering if I'd missed something. I'll do it, I said, but I want something first. Leander's expression shifted. Surprise, maybe, or respect. What? The truth. About why you're really doing this. I stepped closer. You said you don't leave assets unprotected. You said I'm not an asset. So what am I? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're someone I don't want to lose. The words hung in the air between us. That's not an answer. Yes, he said quietly. It is. The safe house that night was different from the first one. Smaller, quieter. Just one room with a bed, a chair, and windows that overlooked a narrow street. Leander had insisted I couldn't go back to my apartment. Gideon knew where I lived. Until the cargo transfer was done, I stayed under his protection. I sat on the edge of the bed, exhaustion pulling at me, while Leander paced the small space, phone pressed to his ear. He was coordinating tomorrow's operation, making sure his people were in position, ensuring every detail was accounted for. When he finally ended the call, it was past midnight. You should sleep, he said. So should you. I will. Where? He glanced at the chair. There. That's not a bed. I've slept in worse places. He shrugged off his jacket, draped it over the chair back. You need rest more than I do. Tomorrow's going to be difficult. I should have let it go. I should have taken the bed, closed my eyes, and pretended I wasn't terrified. But I was so tired of pretending. Leander. He looked up. Why did Gideon kill my father? His expression went still. You don't need to think about that tonight. Yes, I do. I stood, crossed the small space between us. You said my father noticed patterns. What patterns? What did he see that got him killed? Leander was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, opened a file, and handed it to me. Flight logs, vendor schedules, catering manifests, all marked with my father's handwriting. He found the same thing you did, Leander said quietly. Lazaro and Sons, fake vendors creating access points. He documented it. He built a case, and 2 days before he planned to report it to Alaric, his brakes failed. I stared at the notes. My father's careful, precise handwriting. Gideon ordered it. Yes, and you knew. This whole time, you knew. I suspected, but I couldn't prove it. Not until you found the vendor logs. He took the phone back gently. Your father was 3 steps away from exposing Gideon's entire operation. That's why he had to die. And that's why you're in danger now, because you're finishing what he started. My hands were shaking. I want him to pay. He will. How can you be sure? Because I don't lose. Leander's voice was cold. Absolute. Gideon made a mistake when he touched your family. He made a bigger mistake when he threatened you. And tomorrow, when we access that cargo, he's going to realize just how badly he underestimated us both. I looked up at him. What happens after tomorrow? After tomorrow, Gideon loses his funding, his network, and his leverage. His backers will cut him loose. Alaric will terminate his contract. And he'll spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, wondering when I'll decide he's outlived his usefulness. You're not going to kill him. No. Leander's mouth curved slightly. I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to make him irrelevant. It should have scared me. It didn't. And after that? After Gideon's gone? After that, Leander said quietly, you get to choose. Choose what? Whether you go back to your life or whether you stay in mine. My heart stuttered. That's not a choice. Yes, he said. It is. He moved toward the chair, but I caught his wrist. Don't. He stopped, looked down at my hand on his arm, then back at my face. Isolde, I don't want to be alone tonight. You're not alone. I'm right here. That's not what I mean. I didn't let go. I mean, stay, not in the chair. Here. The air between us went tight. That's a bad idea, he said quietly. Why? Because if I stay, I won't be able to keep my hands off you. My breath caught. Then don't. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't speak. Then his free hand came up, fingers brushing my jaw, tilting my face toward his. Tell me to stop, he said, voice rough. I didn't. He kissed me. No hesitation. No softness, like the last thread of restraint had finally snapped. For a moment there was nothing but the press of him, the sharp pull of breath, the way my name sounded in his mouth like a vow he didn't want to make out loud. He pulled back just enough to look at me. Isolde. Don't stop, I whispered. His hand slid into my hair, steadying me, not gentle, not cruel. Controlled. Possessive in a way that made my pulse trip. We shouldn't, he said, but his voice didn't match the way he stayed close. I don't care, I said. Not tonight. He exhaled, slow and hard, like it cost him something. Then he kissed me again, deeper this time, before he forced himself to stop, forehead resting against mine. I blinked, disoriented. What? Not like this. Not when you're afraid and exhausted and we're walking into a fight tomorrow. He pressed his forehead to mine. When I have you, Isolde, it's going to be because you chose me, not because you needed a distraction. I am choosing you. Tomorrow, he said quietly, after it's done, after Gideon's finished, then you can choose me and I'll make sure you don't regret it. He stood, pulled the blanket over me, and moved back to the chair. I lay there, heart racing, skin still burning from his touch. Leander. What? You're a terrible distraction. His mouth curved. Get some sleep, Isolde. I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep for a long time. Morning came too fast. Leander woke me at 6 with coffee and a plain black uniform. Crew support, no airline markings. Facility inspection starts at 8, he said. We need to be in position by 7:30. I dressed quickly, hands steadier than I expected. By 7, we were in a car heading toward the secure facility on the edge of Zurich's industrial district. There's a legitimate inspection scheduled for 8, Leander said as we drove. We're using their authorization codes and going in 30 minutes early. By the time anyone realizes there were 2 inspection teams, we'll be gone. By 7:20, we were inside. Credentials checked, clearance confirmed. The facility was exactly what Leander had described. High security, cameras everywhere, guards at every checkpoint. But there were gaps, small ones, timing-based, procedural. We walked through the main corridor like we belonged there. Leander's posture was different, security professional, alert but not aggressive. I carried a tablet and a checklist, playing the role of routine inspection support. The cargo container was in a staging area near the main vault. 2 guards, 3 cameras, 1 blind spot, exactly where Leander had said it would be. Ready, he murmured. I nodded. We approached the guards. Leander flashed credentials. I smiled, referenced the inspection protocol, and handed over the tablet with the forged authorization. The guards checked it, conferred, nodded. You have 10 minutes, one of them said. That's all we need. They unlocked the container. Inside, stacks of files, hard drives, USB storage, all meticulously organized. Leander pulled out a compact camera, started photographing everything. I cross-referenced the files against the vendor logs I'd memorized, flagging the ones that matched Lazaro and Sons transactions. 5 minutes in, I found it. A ledger, handwritten, names, account numbers, routing codes, and at the top, Gideon Wraith, Project Oversight. Leander. He looked up, saw what I was holding, and his expression went cold. That's it. Photograph every page. I did. Fast. Efficient. We were at the 8-minute mark when I heard footsteps in the corridor. Leander's head snapped up. Move. Now. We closed the container, handed the tablet back to the guards, and walked toward the exit. Calm, professional, like nothing was wrong. We were 10 feet from the corridor when Gideon stepped into view. He looked at me, then at Leander. Then he smiled. "Isolde," he said pleasantly. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Isolde," Gideon said pleasantly. "I didn't expect to see you here." His smile was the kind that didn't reach his eyes. Professional, controlled. The smile of a man who'd already won. Leander's hand found the small of my back. Brief, steadying. "Wraith." "Sorelli." Gideon's gaze swept over us both, taking in the crew uniform I wore, the security credentials clipped to Leander's jacket. "Facility inspection? How thorough of you." "Routine protocol," Leander said evenly. "Is it?" Gideon tilted his head. "Because I have to tell you, when I received the alert that someone was accessing the cargo container using inspection credentials 30 minutes ahead of schedule, I thought, now that's interesting timing." My stomach dropped. "You had someone watching," I said. "I have someone watching everything." His gaze settled on me. "Did you really think I wouldn't have eyes inside this facility? I've been 3 steps ahead of you this entire time, Isolde. Yesterday's cargo, today's transfer, it's all been a test. And you both failed spectacularly." Leander's expression didn't change. "We're leaving." "No," Gideon said quietly. "You're not." 2 security guards appeared at the end of the corridor. Not facility personnel. Gideon's people. "Here's what's going to happen," Gideon continued, voice still pleasant. "You're going to hand over whatever photographs you took. You're going to walk out of this facility. And you're going to forget you ever saw that ledger." "And if we don't?" I asked. "Then I make a call and your mother's house burns down with her inside it. Then I make another call and your brother's care facility has a tragic gas leak. Then I make a third call and Leander's operations network collapses under the weight of every law enforcement agency in Europe." He smiled. "I have contingencies, Isolde. I always have contingencies." Leander's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "You won't touch her family." "Won't I?" Gideon pulled out his phone. "1 call, that's all it takes." "Make the call," Leander said. Gideon paused. "Excuse me?" "Make the call. Trigger your contingencies. Let's see how far they get." Leander's mouth curved. "Cold, dangerous. Because while you were busy setting up surveillance in this facility, I was dismantling every single leverage point you think you have." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Leander pulled out his own phone, tapped the screen twice, then turned it toward Gideon. "That's a live feed from your primary operations account, the one you've been using to fund your network. Notice anything?" Gideon's expression went still. "Frozen," Leander continued. "As of 20 minutes ago, along with your secondary accounts, your shell company registrations, and the offshore holdings you thought were untraceable." He pocketed the phone. "The people you're working for. They just received a very detailed file outlining how you've been skimming their funds. I give it another hour before they come looking for you." "That's impossible." "No, that's what happens when you underestimate the woman standing next to me." Leander's hand moved to my shoulder. "Isolde gave me the vendor logs, the routing patterns, the access points, every piece of evidence I needed to trace your entire operation back to its source. And while you were busy threatening her family, I was busy making sure you'd never touch them again." Gideon's pleasant mask cracked. "You have no idea what you've done." "I know exactly what I've done. I've made you irrelevant." Leander's voice went cold. "Your funding is gone. Your network is compromised. Your backers are coming for you. And by this time tomorrow, every law enforcement agency in 3 countries will have enough evidence to put you away for a decade. Or, and this is the beautiful part, you disappear. You run. You spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering when someone will decide you know too much." "I still have leverage," Gideon said tightly. "I still have—" "Paul Verne?" Leander interrupted. "The debt collector you sent to threaten Isolde? He's been in custody since last night, and he's very eager to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. The vendor network? Dismantled. The catering access points? Closed. The crew members you've been blackmailing? They're all talking to my lawyers right now." He stepped forward. "You're done, Wraith. The only question left is whether you walk out of here on your own, or whether I have you dragged out." Gideon stared at him, something wild flickering behind his eyes. Then he looked at me. Your father, he said quietly. Did Leander tell you what really happened? My blood went cold. Don't, Leander said, voice sharp. He found the vendor logs, Gideon continued, ignoring him. Just like you did. He built a case, just like you did. And then he made the mistake of trusting the wrong person. Stop talking. He went to Alaric. He thought Alaric would help him expose the corruption. But, Alaric? Gideon smiled. Alaric called me, told me there was a problem that needed handling. And I handled it. The words hit like a fist to the chest. You're lying. Am I? Gideon's gaze didn't waver. Ask Alaric. Ask him who gave the order. Ask him why your father's brakes failed 2 days before he planned to file his report. I couldn't breathe. Leander's hand tightened on my shoulder. Isolde? Did you know? I turned to face him. Did you know Alaric gave the order? His expression told me everything. Yes. The floor seemed to tilt. You knew. This whole time, you knew Alaric was involved. And you didn't tell me. Because I needed you focused on Gideon. If you'd known Alaric was complicit, I would have made different choices. My voice shook. I would have. You would have gone after Alaric instead of the man who actually killed your father. Leander's tone was hard, unyielding. Alaric gave the order, but Gideon executed it. Alaric's a coward who hides behind neutrality. Gideon's the one with blood on his hands. They're both guilty, yes, and we're going to make them both pay. But first, we finish this. I looked between them, Gideon, still smiling that terrible smile, and Leander, cold and controlled and holding secrets he'd kept from me. You're just like him, I said to Leander. You're both using me. No. His voice softened. I'm protecting you. There's a difference. Is there? For a moment, no one spoke. Then Gideon moved, fast, toward the container, toward the guards. But Leander was faster. He stepped between Gideon and the exit, blocking his path. You're not leaving with that cargo. You can't stop me. Watch me. Gideon's hand went to his jacket. And I realized, too late, what he was reaching for. Leander. The guards moved. Shouts echoed through the corridor. Facility alarms screamed to life. And in the chaos, I made a choice. I grabbed the tablet from the container inspection station, pulled up the facility's security interface, and triggered the emergency lockdown protocol. Every door in the corridor slammed shut, including the one Gideon was running toward. He hit the reinforced steel at full speed, stumbled back, and spun toward me. What did you do? I locked us in. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. No one's leaving until facility security arrives. And when they do, they're going to find Leander's evidence files waiting in their system. Files that show exactly what you've been moving through this facility. Files that prove you've been using Alaric's diplomatic cargo access to smuggle financial records for criminal networks across 3 countries. Gideon's face went white. I uploaded them while you were busy gloating. I set the tablet down. You taught me something important, Gideon. You said I needed to stop being a pawn and start being a player, so that's what I'm doing. While Leander had been photographing the ledger, I'd use the inspection tablet to access the facility's secure server. 3 minutes. That's all it took to queue the files for system-wide distribution with a 10-minute delay. I'd cross-referenced Leander's evidence against the facility's cargo logs, flagged every discrepancy, and set it to push to facility security, local law enforcement, and Interpol simultaneously. By the time Gideon had appeared in the corridor, the upload was already queued. The lockdown just ensured no one could run before it executed. Leander stared at me. When did you, while you were dismantling his accounts? I met his gaze. You're not the only one who can work 3 steps ahead. For the first time since I'd met him, Leander Sorelli looked genuinely surprised. Then he smiled. That's my girl. Leander had vetted the facility security days ago. Clean, professional, not on Gideon's payroll. They'd have no choice but to follow protocol once they saw the evidence. That's why the lockdown worked. That's why I trusted it. Facility security arrived 4 minutes later. By then, Gideon's guards had already surrendered. Gideon himself sat on the floor, hands zip-tied behind his back, staring at nothing. The security chief took one look at the evidence files I'd uploaded, made 3 phone calls, and called for police backup. Leander and I gave our statements, showed our credentials, walked them through the inspection authorization and the discovery of the smuggling operation. By noon, Gideon Wraith was in custody. By 1 p.m., Alaric Dane's offices were being raided by Interpol. By 2 p.m., Leander and I were sitting in a quiet cafe 3 blocks from the facility, drinking coffee that tasted like ash. You uploaded the files, he said finally. Yes. Without telling me. You kept Alaric's involvement from me. I met his gaze. We're even. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I should have told you. Yes, you should have. I was trying to protect you. I know. I set down my cup. But I don't need protection, Leander. I need partnership. I need to know that when I'm standing next to you, you're not keeping secrets that could get me killed. You're right. I know I'm right. His mouth curved slightly. You locked us all in a corridor with a man who was ready to kill us. He wasn't going to kill anyone. He was going to run. And I made sure he couldn't. I leaned back. You said you wanted someone who could think 3 steps ahead. That's what I did. You did. He reached across the table, fingers brushing mine. You were extraordinary. I was terrified. You didn't show it. That's the job. I turned my hand over, let him take it. What happens now? Now? Leander's grip tightened slightly. Now Gideon faces charges in 3 countries. Alaric loses his network, his reputation, and any protection he thought he had. And you? He paused. You get to choose. Choose what? Whether you go back to your life, or whether you stay in mine. The question I'd been avoiding since the night in the safe house. What does staying look like? Dangerous, complicated, never boring, his gaze held mine. I run operations that exist in the gray spaces between legal and illegal. I make enemies, I make hard choices, and I'd be asking you to do the same. And if I stay, then you're not a flight attendant anymore. You're my strategist, my logistics expert, my partner. He said the last word carefully, like he was testing its weight. I don't do partnerships, Isolde. I don't trust easily. But you, he stopped, started again. You're the first person in 10 years I've wanted to trust. Wanted to, not do. Trust is earned, he said quietly. You said that yourself. Your tattoo. My rule. He stood, pulled me to my feet. Come with me. Where? Somewhere we can finish this conversation properly. The apartment overlooked Lake Zurich. Not a safe house this time. His place, real furniture, real books on the shelves. A kitchen that looked like it had actually been used. This is where you live, I said. When I'm in Zurich, yes. He shrugged off his jacket, tossed it over a chair. No one knows about this place except the 2 people I mentioned before. And now me. And now you. He moved to the window, hands in his pockets. I meant what I said at the facility. You were extraordinary today. The way you handled Gideon, the lockdown, the file upload. He turned back. You didn't need me. You could have done all of that without me. But I didn't want to. His expression shifted. What? I could have walked away after we got the evidence. I could have let you handle Gideon alone, but I didn't. I crossed the room until I was standing in front of him. Because somewhere between the galley interrogation and the safe house and the facility corridor, I stopped working for you and started working with you. Isolde, I'm not done. I reached up, fingers brushing the edge of his jaw. You kept Alaric's involvement from me. That was wrong. But you also dismantled a debt network, protected my family, and gave me the tools to finish what my father started. You said trust is earned. You've been earning mine since the moment you walked into that galley. His hand came up, covering mine. What are you saying? I'm saying I choose you. I pulled him down, pressed my forehead to his. I choose this. The danger, the complications, the partnership, all of it. You're sure? I'm terrified, but I'm sure. He kissed me, slow and certain, like he wasn't asking anymore, like he was finally answering. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. Last chance, he murmured. Tell me to stop. No, I said. No more stopping. Something in him gave way, not recklessness, but surrender. He kissed me again, and the assumed distance between us disappeared like it had never existed. We made it to the couch in a blur of breath and hands and quiet, urgent laughter that didn't belong to either of us until now. He paused once, only once, to search my face to make sure this was still my choice. It was. "Bedroom," he said, voice low. I nodded, and he took my hand like he'd decided he was done letting go. The door closed behind us. The city lights spilled across the floor, and everything that followed was private. Still mine, still chosen, still real. Later, wrapped in the hush that comes after storms, I lay beside him while his breathing finally slowed, his arm heavy across my waist like a promise he couldn't talk himself out of. "Stay," he said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere," I whispered back. "I mean permanently. Move into the Milan hub. Work with me. Build this with me." I turned to face him. "What about my apartment? My job?" "Your apartment's a closet. Your job nearly got you killed." His fingers traced patterns on my shoulder. "I'm offering you something better. Partnership. Partnership." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "Equal seat at the table. Equal say in operations. Equal share of the profits. That's what you've earned." He pulled back enough to meet my gaze. "I don't make offers like this, Isolde. I don't bring people into my world. But you?" He stopped. Started again. "I don't want to lose you." "You already said that." "I'm saying it again, because it's true." His hand cupped my face. "You're not an asset. You're not a tool. You're mine, and I'm yours, if you want me." My throat tightened. "I want you." "Then stay." I thought about my tiny apartment, my exhausting job, the 8 years I'd spent smiling for billionaires while drowning in debt. I thought about my father's notes, the patterns he'd seen, the case he'd built. I thought about the ledger with Gideon's name at the top, and the way I'd locked the corridor, and the file upload that had brought him down. I thought about Leander saying "that's my girl," like it meant something. "Okay," I said, "I'll stay." His smile was slow, dangerous, beautiful. "Good." He kissed me again, softer this time, and I felt it settle in my chest. The choice I'd made, the life I was choosing, the man who'd seen me as more than just a flight attendant serving champagne at 30,000 feet. "Leander," I whispered. "What?" "I love you." The words hung in the air between us. He went still. Then his hand tightened on my waist, and he pressed his forehead to mine. "I love you too," he said quietly. "I think I have since the moment you checked that briefcase and didn't run." "That was day one." "I know," his mouth curved. "You were trouble from the start." "Good." He laughed, a real laugh, low and warm and rare, and pulled me closer. We fell asleep like that, tangled together, and when I woke in the morning, he was already awake, watching me with an expression I'd never seen before. Soft, open, mine. "Good morning," I said. "Good morning." He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "I meant what I said last night. About partnership. About staying. I know. We start as soon as you're ready. Milan hub. New operations. Your choice on how we structure it. Equal partners. Equal partners." He kissed me once, slow and thorough. "Now get dressed. We have work to do." 3 weeks later, I was standing in Leander's Milan operations hub, our hub now, reviewing flight logs for a client I didn't recognize. The name was flagged in our system, Victor Casimir, Russian national, chartered 3 flights in the past month, all through a subsidiary network we'd been monitoring since Gideon's arrest. Something about the pattern felt wrong. Alain appeared at my shoulder, coffee in hand. She'd quit Alaric's network the day after his arrest and joined us without hesitation. Turns out she'd suspected something was wrong for months, but hadn't known who to trust. Now she handled logistics coordination and crew management, the same work she'd always done, but without the corruption. "That's the Casimir file," she said. "Leander's been tracking him for 2 weeks. What's the concern? Casimir's moving assets out of Europe, fast. Like he knows something's coming." She took a sip of coffee. "Leander thinks he's connected to Gideon's old backers, the ones who cut him loose." I pulled up the flight manifests. 3 routes: Milan to Monaco, Monaco to Istanbul, Istanbul to Dubai. The vendor logs showed a pattern I recognized immediately. He's using the same access points Gideon built, I said. Look, catering vendors that aren't on the approved list. Flight times that don't match standard scheduling. He's exploiting the gaps Gideon created before we shut them down. Can we close them? We can. I pulled up a separate screen, started cross-referencing vendor authorizations against security clearances. But if we shut him down now, we lose the chance to see where the money's going. And if he's connected to Gideon's backers, we need that intel. So what do you want to do? I thought about it. Leander's instinct would be to move fast, freeze the accounts, lock down the routes, force Casimir into a corner. It was effective, it was clean, but it wasn't strategic. We let him run, I said. One more flight. We monitor everything, passenger manifests, cargo transfers, destination accounts. We let him think he's safe. And then we use the data to map his entire network before we take him down. Elowen's eyebrows rose. That's risky. It's smart. I turned back to the screen. Shutting him down now gives us 1 win. Letting him run gives us 20. Leander's not going to like it. Then I'll convince him, she smiled. You've changed. Have I? 3 weeks ago, you would have asked permission. Now you're making the call. She set down her coffee. It's good. You're good at this. I didn't know what to say to that. Leander's voice came from across the room. Isolde, my office. I glanced at Elowen. She gave me an encouraging nod. Leander's office was glass-walled, overlooking the main operations floor. He stood by the window, arms crossed, looking every inch. The underworld king who'd walked into that galley 3 weeks ago and upended my entire life. You've been looking at the Casimir file, he said, without turning around. Yes. And? I think we should let him run. Now he turned. Explain. I moved to his desk, pulled up the analysis I'd been building. He's using Gideon's old access points. If we shut him down now, we get Casimir. But his backers stay hidden. If we let him complete 1 more transfer, we can trace the funds back to the source and take down the entire network. Leander studied the screen, jaw tight. That gives him another 48 hours to move assets. If he disappears, he won't. I've already flagged his accounts for monitoring. The moment he tries to liquidate anything, we'll know. I met his gaze. You taught me to think 3 steps ahead. This is 3 steps ahead. He was quiet for a long moment, then, You're sure? Yes. If this goes wrong, it won't. His mouth curved slightly. You're starting to sound like me. Is that a bad thing? No. He crossed to where I stood, hands settling on my waist. It's the reason I wanted you here. So we let him run. It's your call, he said it simply, like it was obvious, like we'd always worked this way. My call. You found the pattern. You built the strategy. I'm not going to override you just because I would have done it differently. He pulled me closer. That's what partnership means, Isolde. I trust your judgment. Something settled in my chest. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a flight attendant drowning in debt, invisible to everyone except the people I served. Now I was standing in an operations hub, making strategic calls that would take down criminal networks, and the man who'd forced me into this world was telling me he trusted my judgment. 48 hours, I said. We monitor everything. If anything feels wrong, we move immediately. Agreed. And when we take him down, we do it together. Always. He kissed me, brief, casual, the kind of kiss that spoke of established intimacy rather than new heat, and released me. Now go coordinate with Elowen. I want surveillance on every access point Casimir might use. If he so much as breathes wrong, I want to know about it. Yes, sir, I said, smiling. He swatted my hip as I walked past. Don't start. 2 days later, I was back on my mother's doorstep outside. The house looked different. Not structurally. It was still the same narrow brick townhouse my parents had bought 30 years ago. But the weight that had pressed down on it for 18 months was gone. The mortgage was paid. The deed was in my mother's name. The lawn was trimmed, the windows clean, the front steps repaired. It looked like a home again. My mother opened the door before I could knock. Isolde. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like lavender and relief. I didn't know you were coming. Surprise visit. I have a few hours before my flight back to Milan. Milan? She pulled back, studied my face, You look different. Do I? Happier, lighter. She stepped aside to let me in. Come, I'll make tea. The kitchen was exactly as I remembered. Small, worn, but clean. My mother moved through it with the ease of decades, filling the kettle, pulling down cups. How's Samuel? I asked. Thriving. Her smile was genuine, unforced. The new treatment is working. His specialist says he's made more progress in the past 3 weeks than he did in the previous 6 months. She set the cups on the table. I don't know how you managed it, Isolde. The contract, the payments, everything, it's more than I ever hoped for. I told you I'd handle it. You did more than handle it. She reached across the table, took my hand. You gave us our lives back. My throat tightened. I'm just glad it's done. Is it? Her gaze sharpened. The man you're working for now, Leander Sorelli. I looked him up. Of course she had. And he's dangerous, powerful, connected to things I don't want to think about. She squeezed my hand. Are you safe? I thought about the facility corridor, the lockdown, the way Leander had looked at me when I'd said I love you. I'm safe. Are you happy? That was harder to answer. Was I happy? I was living in a world where violence was a tool, where the line between legal and illegal blurred daily, where every decision carried weight I'd never imagined. But I was also using my mind in ways I'd never been allowed to before. I was building strategies that mattered. I was seen, truly seen, by someone who valued my confidence as much as my presence. Yes, I said finally, I'm happy. My mother studied me for a long moment, then she nodded. Your father would be proud of you. The words hit harder than I expected. Would he? He spent his entire career trying to do the right thing in a system built to punish honesty. And when he finally found proof of corruption, it killed him. She poured the tea, hands steady. But you finished what he started. Gideon Wraith is in custody. Alaric Dane is awaiting trial. The network that killed your father is gone. I had help. I know, but it was still you. She set down the teapot. Your father believed that good people could make a difference, even in dark places. I think he'd be proud that you proved him right. I couldn't speak. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I found this in his things. After the accident, I've been keeping it, waiting for the right time to give it to you. I unfolded it. My father's handwriting, neat, precise, the same handwriting I'd seen in the vendor logs. Isolde. If you're reading this, then something has gone wrong. I've been tracking discrepancies in Alaric Dane's network for 6 months, and I'm close to proving systematic corruption. Tomorrow, I'm taking my evidence to Alaric himself. I believe he'll do the right thing, but if I'm wrong, if this goes badly, I need you to know something. You are the smartest, most capable person I've ever known. You see patterns others miss. You ask the questions no one else thinks to ask. And someday, you're going to do something extraordinary with that mind. Don't waste it serving people who can't see your value. Don't settle for invisible. I love you. Dad. I read it 3 times. My mother's hand covered mine. He knew you'd finish this. Maybe not the way it happened, but he knew. He told me not to waste my mind. And you're not, she smiled. You're using it exactly the way he hoped you would. I folded the note carefully and slipped it into my pocket. Thank you, I said. For what? For keeping this, for believing I could do it. You're my daughter. She squeezed my hand. I never doubted you for a second. My phone buzzed as I left the house. Leander. Casimir just liquidated his secondary accounts. You were right. He's making one final transfer before running. We move tonight. I smiled and typed back. I'll be there in 3 hours. Don't start without me. Leander. Wouldn't dream of it. That night, back at Leander's place overlooking Lake Zurich, the world finally went quiet enough for me to feel it. Peace. Casimir was in custody by 11 p.m. The operation had gone exactly as I'd predicted. He'd tried to move his assets through the Istanbul route, and we'd been waiting. Leander's team intercepted the transfer, froze the accounts, and handed the evidence to Interpol before Casimir even realized he'd been caught. By midnight, we had confirmation that his backers, 3 high-level financiers connected to Gideon's old network, were also under investigation. 1 operation, 20 arrests. Exactly what I told Elowen would happen. Now I stood on the balcony of Leander's apartment, looking out at the dark water of Lake Zurich, and felt something I hadn't felt in 8 years. Peace. Leander came up behind me, hands sliding around my waist, chin resting on my shoulder. You were right. I know. You don't have to sound so smug about it. Yes, I do. I leaned back against him. You would be. His laugh was quiet, warm against my neck. Fair. We stood there in silence for a while, the city lights reflecting off the water, the night air cool and clean. Isolde, he said finally. Do you ever regret it, choosing this? I thought about the question. I thought about my tiny apartment and the 8 years I'd spent drowning in debt. I thought about serving champagne at 30,000 feet to people who never saw me. I thought about my father's note and the word invisible. And I thought about the woman I'd become in the past 3 weeks. The woman who built strategies that took down criminal networks. The woman who stood in operations hubs and made calls that mattered. The woman who'd been seen, truly seen, and valued for exactly who she was. No, I said, I don't regret it. Even though it's dangerous? Especially because it's dangerous. I turned in his arms to face him. I spent 8 years being safe, being invisible, wasting my potential on work that didn't matter, and I was miserable. And now I'm terrified half the time. I'm making decisions that could have dangerous consequences. I'm living in a world where the rules are different and the stakes are higher than anything I imagined. I reached up, fingers brushing his jaw. But I'm not invisible anymore. I'm not wasted, and I'm not alone. His hand came up to cover mine. You're never going to be alone again. Promise. Promise. He kissed me, slow, thorough, the kind of kiss that said I love you without needing the words. When he pulled back, his expression was serious. I need to tell you something. What? There's another operation, bigger than Casimir, bigger than Gideon. He hesitated. It's going to take us to places that make what we've done so far look simple, and I need to know you're ready for it. What kind of operation? The kind that goes after the people who funded Gideon and Alaric, the ones at the top of the network, the ones who've been untouchable for decades. His gaze held mine. It's going to be dangerous. It's going to take months, and there's a chance we don't come out of it the same way we went in. I should have been afraid. Maybe I was. But I thought about my father's note, about the vendor logs and the ledger and the facility corridor, where I'd locked us all in and forced a resolution. I thought about Leander saying that's my girl and meaning it. I'm ready, I said. You're sure? I spent 8 years serving champagne to people who couldn't see me. I spent 18 months drowning in debt that wasn't mine. I spent my entire life being told to stay small, stay quiet, stay invisible. I pulled him closer. I'm done being invisible, Leander. Whatever this operation is, whatever it takes, I'm ready. His smile was slow, dangerous, proud. Then let's get to work. We stayed on the balcony for another hour, planning the first phase of the operation, talking through logistics and contingencies and all the ways it could go wrong. And when we finally went inside, when he pulled me down onto the couch and kissed me like he was memorizing the shape of my mouth, I felt it again. That certainty, the knowledge that I'd made the right choice, not because it was safe, not because it was easy, but because I'd chosen purpose over comfort, partnership over security, power over invisibility. I'd chosen to be seen, and I'd never looked back. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe so you don't miss the next Mafia love story. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what you thought of this narrator. Your feedback really helps me make these even better for you. Thank you for letting my stories keep you company. It truly means more than you know.